Hello, everybody. Tim Roberts, Executive Director with BNI New Hampshire, Central Florida, and Northeast Florida. Welcome back to our little member series where we're getting to know members from around our regions. I'm excited to be joined today with Evan Jones. Evan is with Evan Jones Master Electrician, and he has been with BNI for 9 years this summer, so quite a long time, which is absolutely amazing. And we're excited to get to know you a little bit more, Evan. I've got a bunch of questions for you, but before we dive into what I have, why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself to people watching, tell us about you, your company, and what's a good referral for you?
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. And thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. I love BNI and I love talking. And so this is a great opportunity. My company is about 16 years old, and BNI has absolutely been a game changer over the last 9 years or so. I have a team of about 10 guys,
Oh,
and between office and field. And we'll talk about that when it comes to the story, but BNI has been a big part of that. We serve residential clients, particularly in the residential electrical remodel world. And and as far as personally, I live in New Hampshire, Southern New Hampshire, and I have four teens, young adults. So I have a 20, 18, 16, and 14.
wow. Yeah, you're a busy man then. How far do you guys service with all of those electricians?
So I live in Merrimack. We've always been in the Bedford Milford area. And so
Yeah.
we're trying to stay within half an hour of Bedford or Milford. So we'll do up to Concord, down to Salem, Wyndham Dairy, but Bedford and Milford are our sweet spots.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you're watching this and you have electrical needs, this is the guy you want to talk to. So let's talk about just kind of your journey in BNI a little bit. How did you first come about finding BNI, and what was like your initial thought? What made you decide that you wanted to get involved 9 years ago?
Sure. So I had about 15 years ago, I had a very brief introduction to BNI, but I think there was a blizzard that day and the meeting was closed. And so it
We
just
have that
never went
issue in New
anywhere.
Hampshire.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I had started to hear about it. And then about 10, 11 years ago, I joined a Chamber of Commerce group that was a similar business model, and there was some crossover between the two. I met some amazing networkers, and through that process, several of us ended up joining a BNI, and I got introduced to people who were, they were just networkers at the core of their being.
Yep.
And I found myself thinking that's who I was born to be. This comes easily to me, and I want to do this, and I love it. And I was very fortunate.
Oh, you muted yourself real quick. Yep.
Sorry, I
That's
was very
okay.
fortunate when I found the chapter that we're in now, where it was a perfect fit. And I've been here for a long time and have relationships that go back years now.
Yeah. Obviously, right now, in the world we're kind of all in, the trades is an extremely busy field. People
It
kind of running
is.
around ragged. Lot of home projects. COVID. We
Yeah.
talked about that was going to bring on a lot of home projects, and that came true. Have you found it still important to be actively involved in your chapter, even during these busy times? Because I know that's usually a challenge for a lot of tradespeople, right? Where they get really busy.
It
Who has time for networking?
It is, and it kind of, so in terms of the COVID quarantine factor, BNI has been very kind to us, and the economy has been very kind to us in recognizing that there's a lot to be done.
Yep.
But in terms of your larger question there, I love the question, because when I first started doing networking and organized networking in BNI, that was the challenge I faced. But as I hired guys who were then out in the field, I realized it is my job to grow the company by participating in BNI. And so all of a sudden, my Wednesday morning appointment became the most important hour of my week,
Okay.
instead of thinking, I really should be hanging lights right now, and instead I'm in this meeting full of people. So I had to shift my own attitude of, what role does BNI play in my life? And it went from being a burden to being how I've grown my company. And just recognizing, A, I love this stuff, and B, I have to do this stuff in order to grow.
Yeah, I think that's like a really important factor. Obviously, I've been fortunate being BNI now 20 years this May. Met a
Yeah.
lot of tradespeople, but that's always been the challenge with people, especially in the trades, like joining any kind of networking is, like you said, like I should be on the job site, I should be doing that, and getting the mindset to see it as, well, this is going to get more jobs, right? This is what's going to
Yeah.
build it so that I can hire more and expand. There's a famous kind of story we've told in the region before of one of our longtime members saying the same thing. He found that joining BNI actually freed up time because he realized he always thought he had to get his guys ready to go in the morning. And then he realized,
Yeah.
like, when he was at BNI, they did it on their own. So then he realized, like, well,
There
that
you
means they
go.
could do it every day on their own. And then all of a sudden it freed up time. So it's really quite impressive.
That's
And then
great.
to be able to stick with it. So how big were you 9 years ago versus where you are now? How's that journey gone?
Sure. So when I started 9 years ago, this was part of the challenge is I joined a noontime group and I
Yeah.
had one guy who business model wise was pretty much supposed to be with me all day. And so that did not end up being a good fit because I would have to leave him somewhere that I wasn't supposed to in the middle of the day and then try to come back. And so shortly thereafter, we found a better fit with the morning meetings. And by then, what BNI has enabled me to do is grow about a guy a year. And
Okay.
so
Wow.
instead of being like, I don't desperately need the money from BNI in order to sustain, but in order to grow, say, 100 grand a year or a guy a year, the BNI has been the difference maker in each plateau that I reach. Okay, BNI helps me get to the next one,
Okay.
and now I can hire. So I kind of look at it in terms of I hire a guy every year with the money that I make from BNI. If
Yeah.
it's not literally that, but it ends up feeling like that.
It's a really interesting strategy, and obviously one that's been pretty successful. And then obviously we have chapters at different times for that very reason, right? Everybody's schedule is slightly
Yeah.
different. Morning might not work. We actually have our first group starting in the evening now. They start at like
Oh yeah. Okay.
four to 5:30. So that's going to be interesting. And obviously with COVID, how did you find the experience of going all online and starting to network?
Sure.
You know, still doing BNI, but in a different format or a different environment.
Sure. So honestly, I'm not a Zoom. I didn't know what Zoom was. I don't think 18 months ago. And if I did, it was for those other people. I wanted nothing to do with it. And so, like many people, I learned quickly. I'm not a white collar guy. I'm more of a blue collar guy. But BNI Zoom has become almost my favorite hour of the week. And I was a little bit of an outlier where I was still out in people's homes every week and we were
Right.
every day. So I wasn't like lonely and bored in the sense of some people were dealing with quarantine. I would say that BNI worked spectacularly for me with the Zoom format, but I would say it's largely because they were people that I knew, loved, and trusted
Right.
anyway. I think it would have been hard to start that way, but I've seen that done too, and it works. But I love the Zoom format. I also love giving hugs to people when I see them, and so
Yeah.
I'll gladly go either way.
And miss the handshakes, which is interesting too, because we're trying different formats now. You know, we talked about if there's ever a silver lining to a global pandemic, it forces innovation, right? It forces us to
Yeah,
try new skills and different things. And our company's no different. So now we have chapters that are back to meeting live. We have chapters that are going to continue to only meet online. Some are doing a hybrid where some meetings are live, some
yeah.
meetings are online. And it's going to be interesting to see where it continues to trend. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned over 9 years now networking with your chapters and BNI that, you know, maybe you didn't know or didn't think of going in?
I think one of them has been, and I know BNI uses this language and I'm borrowing it, but the transition from being an electrician who was hungry for transactional referrals to being a businessman who was hungry for relationship referrals
Okay.
it has not necessarily been, I used to be wrong and now I'm right. But my needs have changed. And so
Yeah.
when I was working hourly and was desperate to feed my kids and such. I almost resented that hour that I'm away and don't send me a referral of somebody who might be interested in using me sometime. I've gotten a lot of transactional ones through the years that have been very good, but now I'm finding that that relationship referral where I can meet somebody for lunch or coffee, or a little fun fact about me, my wife and I bought an ice cream stand a little over a year ago. So now I can meet people for ice cream.
There you go.
Um, but it's that relationship referral now is much bigger. I have one of my BNI success stories goes back to a former member who's not part of our chapter anymore, but I, over the last few years, have brought in between 50 and 100 grand from them alone each year. And it
Right.
just, that was a relationship referral that started transactionally. And now I'm more interested in those than I am chasing the transactions, but both help.
Yeah, like you said, it's not right or wrong. It's just the transition of any business, right? As it continues to grow and
Yeah,
mature, you get to change kind of what your focus is as the owner, but you need that strategy early on to make that transition. That's not like a light switch
right.
moment. You don't just go from A to B. And so using your chapter to kind of get there makes a lot of sense. Would you I
Yeah.
mean, obviously I think I know the answer to a lot of some of these questions, but I guess I'll wrap up with, somebody who's watching this and is kind of thinking about it, maybe he's nervous, right? I know you said you kind of have the gift for gab, if you will. You like to talk
Yeah.
and you like to network. Not everybody does.
Yeah.
Most people are actually more introverted. So they're a little nervous or
Agree.
they're a little skeptical about looking at networking. What advice would you give them if they're thinking about it?
I guess I would say that becoming that person in your client's life who people know they can call you and get referrals is invaluable. And that's less about the am I an extrovert or an introvert, but I developed friendships and relationships very early on where I realized, you know what, this guy Zach knows one of everybody. Sherry Lynn knows one of everybody. And so if I can become that person to my clients and friends, it adds value monetarily, but it adds value relationally. And I think that's one of the biggest values to me, is that I become that person in my circle of influence who people know they can call.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Becoming that resource just increases your referrals, even from your current client base and everything else, right? Becoming that center of influence. How have you found? I know there's a lot of members in your chapter. Sherry Lynn is one. She's now our managing director, right, for all of New
Right,
Hampshire.
right.
You want to talk about starting as an introvert and being nervous. If somebody's kind of nervous, about going to a meeting and it's a bunch of new people, what do you typically say to somebody who might be just a little bit, scared or hesitant just because they're not a networker about coming to a BNI meeting?
Yeah, I think it's, if I can put kind of a little bit of a shameless plug for BNI here, I think that BNI provides the science and the structure and the framework of a how-to network. So it works for introverts, it works for extroverts. So, I can come in and I can sell anything to anybody, maybe because I have a charming disposition. But for somebody who wants to learn the disciplines of, maybe I don't love to network, but I know that I need to, BNI provides an awesome tool and toolbox of, oh, okay, well, if I show up and I do these 5 disciplines, it will bear fruit and it will absolutely work. I put in my time and I do the right things and I will develop relationships. And I don't have to be a charming personality. I don't have to like to sell stuff. I don't have to be the most interesting person in the room. I just have to learn some of these skills and it will eventually pay off, again, both financially and relationally.
Yeah, I think that the consistency too, right? So the fact that you guys
Absolutely.
meet each week and it's one person per profession, which means your group is your group, and that becomes pretty
Yeah.
quick. I think for those who are kind of uncomfortable, a little bit nervous because they're just introverts and uncomfortable starting conversations, right? You go to a chamber or something, and we all do, and you should, but they can be uncomfortable if you're an introvert. Here,
Yeah.
you're seeing the same people each week, and quickly you get to know them so that we speed up, and all of a sudden you're not in front of a group of people you don't know. It's your team, it's your chapter, and that definitely helps. Is there my
Exactly.
last question for you, and I know you're a busy
Yep.
guy, it's a busy day.
That's
Has
okay.
there been anything that you found really valuable with your membership that you didn't originally anticipate? Like, and let me clarify, I think most people join BNI because they want referrals, right? So they're trying to grow their business and they want that
Yeah.
tangible result. Is there anything that was intangible that shocked you or has become extremely valuable for you besides the referrals themselves?
Yeah, I think 2 things to that. So one is, and it's no secret, but you develop people that, this sounds terrible when you say it out loud, but you develop people that you can use for services.
Yeah.
And so this week, my wife and I are closing on a refinance, and the closing group and the mortgage person are both from my group, and I didn't shop around. I didn't consider using anybody else. And that segues to the second, that those two people have actually become some of my closest friends. And so there's that element of, now I know people that I can use who are good at things that I'm not,
Right.
but also the relationship thing. And especially through 2020, for those of us who were extroverts, it was hard when you weren't supposed to be milling around making friends.
Yeah.
And the BNI relationship of seeing a dozen, 2 dozen of my friends every week was not a small thing.
Great. That's amazing. Listen, we appreciate your time. Obviously, you're a long-standing member, another year, and you're going to get that double diamond pin for your ten years. So we're excited to recognize you with that next year, next summer. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be on here and kind of share your story. How about one more time? Can you let everybody know where they can find you or contact you if they want to meet with you or they need your services?
Yeah, I'm going to make it easy. We have the website for Wiring Is Not a Hobby. So wiringisnotahobby.com. It's easy to remember. And also wiring is not a hobby at Gmail is us. And so residential electrical services, we'd love to help you out. And I'm deeply grateful for your time and effort with this.
Yeah. Hey, anybody who needs electrical service, Southern New Hampshire, reach out to Evan. Evan, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Tim. Have a good day.